Hello and welcome to 9-Inch Charge. Today we're going to have a bit of fun. We're going to do some speculating. Now, you may remember a while back there was an old world development diary called The Main Factions Revealed, where we got to know all of the main factions that are going to be in the game at launch. And one of the things that it said in the article, I've got it here, it said, these armies will have rules published alongside the launch of the old world and will be the pivotal players in the events covered in the narrative expansions and supplements. Fans of these armies can also look forward to some shiny new miniatures that will accompany the return of many classic kits. So we thought what we'd do is I've made a list, and Tom has made a list, of one unit we'd like to see redone for each faction, and one new unit we would like to see for each faction. And we'd also like you guys to tell us yours in the comments as well, and keep the conversation going down there. But just before we start going through the factions and seeing and speculating on what we would like to see come out as new models, if you like this kind of thing, if you're interested in the old world whatsoever, please give this video a like. It really helps the channel out. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please make sure that you are subscribed as well. Okay, so let's go through these. Tom, the first faction is the Empire of Man.
So, my kit I'd like to see redone for the Empire of Man are probably going to be the new, the state troops, right? I've just gone through the whole Cities of Sigmar wobble, and I just don't think you can have the old state troops compared to the Cities of Sigmar stuff. I think it would struggle to pull anyone in. If they did them in the same line as those Cities of Sigmar, you know, something really gritty and really modern, I think that'd be absolutely incredible for the old world.
I think something you said to me before about that kit, Tom, is that it's not just one kit. You know, it's the halberdiers, it's the spearmen, it's the swordsman. It covers a multitude of different units. So if they were to redo that, it could be very fresh looking for the whole army, because you could have it sort of spanning different units, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost your entire core selection, wasn't it? You can't start an Empire army without getting that box. So it'd be great. Yeah, I know it's the boring option, but I think it's the one that I think needs to be done the most with that range. And to complement it, I would add in maybe a Cult of Sigmar warrior priest unit. So instead of them being like an individual model that's leading a unit, just like a whole block of really fanatical, angry warrior priests running around the battlefield with great weapons.
Like an upgraded flagellant unit.
Yeah, flagellants on steroids with plate armor.
That'd be cool, and they could all carry hammers of Sigmar.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That'd be cool, like a kind of a different elite infantry unit to go alongside the great swords, I suppose.
Yeah, so like if they don't get any of their buffs and spells off, they might be quite weak, but as soon as they fire off with their buffs and spells, then they're pretty monstrous. I think that'd be
a cool unit to add. So I've got for redone, for remade, I've gone for the War Altar, just because I never really liked the model. I thought it looked a bit strange compared to the Luminarch and the Hurricanum. I thought it was just the odd one out. It just was lacking something for me. It didn't quite have the presence. And I think I would like to see it if I go to another redone kit. It would be cool if they did it as a dual kit and brought back the old war wagon that you could like put your units on. So you could have a variant that had the altar, or a variant that had people like shooting off or what have you. I thought that would be cool. And for new units, I've gone for something a bit similar to you, Tom. Actually, I put cult add-ons. So not just the Cult of Sigmar. I think because Forge World quite like to do this, to sort of upgrade kits and things. I thought it would be cool if you could have your knights or your infantry done for because I suppose I'm just waffling on a bit at the minute, but because the Empire, the focus is more regional, and the different regions do worship different gods. You've got, the White Wolf, and you've got Tal, and then you've got Sigmar. I would like to see that reflected in some sort of way that you could fashion your armies to be a bit more different and to focus on different cults and different gods and explore the religions in the Empire more than just Sigmar.
Yeah, I think that would be brilliant. That sounds like it's got to happen with like a side campaign book, right? Called like United of the Empire, the Three Kingdoms, or something like that, and you release all of that in a side campaign book. That would be perfect.
And then I know we said we'd only do one, but then I've written some experimental tech. And the same can be said for magic as well, because magic is not as refined and gunpowder will not be as refined. So I'd like to see more crazy stuff along the lines of the pigeon bombs and things that just won't work 50% of the time, but 50% of the time they'll be really good. They might blow up, they might not.
Yeah.
A pigeon, pigeon bombs are a stupid idea because pigeons are known to home, so of course they're going to fly back over, something like that. And I also wrote down, I'm getting a bit carried away again. I also wrote down halflings.
Oh, that would be incredible. Yeah.
I don't know in what way. They had the halfling hot pot catapult. They did have, I think, a halfling. Did they have a pony at one point? Or was that in the dwarves?
Maybe. Some skirmishers with slings would be good.
Yeah, something. A nod to the moot, I would like.
Yeah.
So that's, I know we said we'd do one each, but yeah.
That's a really good shout, though. Halflings is a brilliant idea. I love that because I've got a little hobbit army painted for Lord of the Rings, so I love that.
Well, they did them for Blood Bowl as well, didn't they? So
yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, with the Cornish pasties.
Yes.
Yeah, love that.
All right. Next up, we have got the dwarves. So, which unit did you choose, Tom? As a dwarf player,
this was a
no-brainer
for me because I can get almost everything else in plastic.
I think I've chosen the same as you.
The old orc got a dwarf slayer. Pardon me. Yeah.
Yeah, I chose slayers as well. Yeah.
In their 8th edition book, they got a hero slayer, and everything else got a plastic except for those slayers. So I'd love to see them come back.
They're kind of like, if there was a 9th edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battles, they're what you would expect to be done.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'd expect to see that, the Grudge Thrower, and I don't know what else was. The Flame Cannon, maybe. Like redone.
I like the Flame Cannon. I know they were small, but I like the Flame Cannon, I have to say.
Oh, that thing was brilliant. Yeah.
But yeah, Slayers, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And what about as a new unit, Tom?
A monster stone golem, I think, would be the thing I'd love to see. Like something Cygor sized, or maybe Treekin sized as well in a smaller unit. But just a massive stone golem would be boss. Like the rock idol, but dwarven.
Well, they were in the lore, weren't they? And supposedly, the magic or whatever that brings them alive is now sort of long gone. But there's no reason to say they can't write something into the narrative to bring them back.
No, absolutely not. There was rumours around about them at the end of 8th edition as well. So
it would be very cool to see. So I've gone for something like a mechanical construction. So I've put train/tank/lawnmower. Because of whatever that thing in Blood Bowl is called.
Yeah, I had the name of it on my tongue just then. Death Roller.
Yeah.
Sorry,
to me it'll always be the lawnmower.
Like a ironclad.
I feel like we didn't see enough dwarf tech. We had the gyrocopter and the gyro bomber, and we had some black powder, and we always had this divide in the dwarves where, you had the quarrelers and the thunderers and the grudge thrower and the cannon, and you had this old tech versus new tech. But I would like to have seen some of the new stuff, like the gyrocopter and the gyro bomber, but on land, something. And I know that the Chaos Dwarves got their train, but I'd like to see an equivalent for the dwarves. And actually, in the time period that it's set at the moment, this is called the Silver Age for the dwarves. It's not quite the Golden Age, but they're on the resurgent. They're on the up. They're doing really well. So it would be cool to see what they can come up with, because it's not always this 2 minutes to midnight thing where, you know, you're just holding out against chaos or whatever. Actually, of course, doing fine. So it would be cool to see that.
Living their best life at the minute, aren't they? So,
yeah.
I don't know
plenty of ale to drink and plenty of orcs and goblins to fight. So why not?
Yeah, trade in ale for black powder with Yumis. So
maybe like a mining machine, but instead of like using it to mine through rock, they just use it to grind up infantry.
The difficulty is it might just look too much like the steam tank. So would you remove the steam tank from the Empire list and come up with like an ironclad for the dwarfs?
No.
No?
I would try and do something, you know, that you're right, it would be similar, but I would try and make them, hopefully, you know, Games Workshop pay people enough to make things unique enough to stand up on their own, so it would be different, I suppose, is what I would hope.
That's true.
All right. Oh, Bretonia is next.
Bretonia. These are going to be the golden geese of the old world, I think. The kit I'd love to see redone. I'd like to see the Pegasus Knights redone. I know there's a whole lot of new photos of them online, so it looks like the old ones are still here to stay, but if I was going to wish list, it would be them. To go with the new Pegasus sprue we saw.
Yeah, which we think is going to be a hero
only,
and not for a unit.
Not a unit, no.
That would be cool, because I think Games Workshop can do flyers in a really dynamic way now. Obviously, we have to wonder what the scope is going to be of the redone units, how much they're going to redo. But I think they could do a really top job on them now, and they'd look awesome.
Yeah, I think the simple thing is, if you may notice something in my list, is a lot of like cavalry, because I think they can just do so much better now with cavalry than they've ever done before. So,
and I've gone for, I'd like to see the Hippogriff redone, because for me, there's a few bits in the Bretonian range like it, actually. I think that the Trebuchet is a bit like it. A lot of things were a bit small.
Yeah.
And I think even for Warhammer Fantasy Battles, the Hippogriff was quite small when you compared it to other things in the game. So I'd like to see that redone, and I just know they do an absolutely cracking job with it. I know you were talking about Cities of Sigmar earlier, but that like lion-headed scorpion, you know, beastie. If it was sort of along those lines, it would just be an amazing centerpiece model that they could do. And you know, this is written by the King of Bretonia, so it's got to be pretty big, isn't it?
It's got to be something special.
For new units, you know, we called this way back before the announcement in our previous Bretonian video. We did a bit of wish listing what we'd like to see, and we said Foot Knights, didn't we? Because they're bringing the fight to the Orc. We wanted to see a human knight clad in armor who was sort of ready to go toe to toe with an Orc, and they're going to do them, and I think that's fantastic, and that is what I would have chosen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd still go back for the old Knight of Realm on foot, but I'm going to be a bit more whimsical, and I'm going to throw a couple of suggestions out at you. Unicorn monstrous cavalry, or a unit of unicorns might be quite boss.
A unit of unicorns would be cool, because looking at that fantastic new model that they've brought out, the unicorn is on a square base.
Yeah.
So you would think then, let's say that unicorn is going to go into a unit, and we think the new cavalry base sizes are going to be 30, sort of the frontage, they'd be 30 by 60. That base is probably a 60 mil square base. So that unicorn, it says in the description that it's a muscular unicorn. It's going to be, it's going to be really big. If that's a 60 mil base, it's going to be huge. And you're right, if you had like 3 or 6 of just
Yeah.
those sorts of unicorns. They'd be so fearsome and impressive. You know, and there are other things they could potentially do. Remember the Wood Elves had the Wild Riders, and then they had the alternate version, the Magic Stag
Yeah.
Riders, the Sisters of the Thorn. So you could sort of contrast that. You could have, I don't know how strong magic's going to be for Bretonian, but you could have a unit of sort of demi damsels or something on
Yeah, that'd be
some
great.
unicorns or something. So yeah, that's a cool idea. Oh, Wood Elves next. My favourite faction. Okay, so for redone, I know we said we'd do one, but I've gone for two. The first one is Warhawk Riders. Because I think the kit could be made so much more dynamic now. It's not a bad kit, but I just think it could be so much better. And if I remember correctly, there was still a metal component to it, and I'm not interested in sticking metal wings back into things anymore. I've done enough of that sort of thing. And I think they'd be really cool. And like I said, so dynamic, and they capture motion so well now, Games Workshop, that I just think if they redid them well, I'd just be blown away. And yeah, so they're number one. And number two is the Treekin. And I've painted, I think I've got 12 Treekin in my army at the minute. Yeah, because in 6th edition they were really good. So when I went into the loft, I just found loads of them. So I've painted up 12, and I've stuck some extra branches and some foliage on them, and I've got them to a point where I'm quite happy with them. But when they came out, even, I was never really that enamored with them. And actually, the Tree Man from 6th edition, I never bought. I used my 5th edition Tree Man all the way through, and then in 8th edition, when the new Tree Lord came out, which is used in the Sylvaneth, I thought, that's brilliant. So I went all in with them. Yeah, I think Treekin is a difficult one, though, because obviously now with the Sylvaneth, you've got the Kerneth Hunters, which are what the Treekin should have looked like all along. And it may be treading on the toes of Age of Sigmar a bit, but I would like to think that there's something that could be done with the Treekin.
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen people build them out of their back garden that look better than the one you had. So
some sticks and some googly eyes, and
yeah,
away you go.
And it looks fine, but yeah, maybe they just make them less like I can't even say it. Make them less looking like a man than the other Treekin, right? Than the Age of Sigmar Treekin, and make them look like giant wicked trees.
Yeah, well, that's what they're supposed to be. Sort of the magic of the forest cobbles together constructs out of sort of dead bits of tree and stuff that's kind of lying around, and they're just sort of a whirling kind of force of bits of tree. But it's very difficult to convey that in a model, and even more difficult back then, I suppose.
Yeah. What are your new models?
Oh, a brand new thing. I tell you what. Again, this is kind of going into Age of Sigmar territory a bit, because I can remember thinking back to when we did the video about Wood Elves way back when. I think we did that with Luke from Cinderfall Gaming, but I can remember talking about the Wildwood and how that was an area of Athaloran that always appealed to me, which is where all the nasty, malevolent, evil forest spirits go. And you've got characters like Dryker, who's now resurgent in Age of Sigmar, and there was a tree man called Seadil, however you pronounce that. He lived in there, and there were lots of nasties, and that was all defended by the Wildwood Rangers. But I would like to have that explored and see a bit more. And then I thought, well, maybe there could be some kind of evil, twisted forest unit that lived in there. And then I thought, well, the Spite Revenants are kind of perfect for that. From Age of Sigmar, they look kind of almost exactly what I would have wanted to have seen emerge from the Wildwood. So I don't really know is the answer, because I don't think they're going to go down that route, because I think they want to keep the Old World very separate from Age of Sigmar. You know, there's already been talk of this, competition clause between. Yeah. So I would have chosen Spite Revenants, which is something Games Workshop has already done. But yeah, that's the new unit that I'd like to see. But how about you, Tom? Redone a new for
If I was to see a new unit, a redone unit, it would be the War Dancers. Mainly because I remember playing against yours for years, and they looked fantastic, but they're such a bugger to play against. I'd just like to see them redone for that, just like an accolade of how well they did for you. Especially when you put a hero in there with like Savage Beast of Horrors, Potion of Strength, and he's charging you down with like 10 strength, 10 attacks, and you just thought, well, not going near that guy ever again.
Yeah, the War Dancers were fun. I mean, they're sort of a glass cannon, but they've always got a trick up their sleeve. But I think they're another one of these units that they carried a lot of motion, and some of the models are amazing. I think in particular there was a hero model and there was command models were very good. But the normal guys, I think you're right. And with what Games Workshop do with motion now, I think it would be great to see them. And because they're skirmish units, they don't need to be rank and file, so they can really let loose with the design.
Yeah. Like if you check out the small little Underworlds team they did for the Wood Elves or whatever they're called, there's some in there that look fantastic. I just think that combined with the War Dancers would be incredible. Probably one of the units of the year if they ever get released. And if I wanted to see a new unit along the lines with most of my other stuff, of it just being big and bold, it'd be a big, great stag cavalry unit.
That gets me excited.
Yeah. They were a mount choice, weren't they, for some of the nobles? Or
yeah.
But
it was quite an ugly model. It was it was like a very muscular stag. It looked more like a bull really than a stag. And I never bought one because I didn't like the look of it.
Yeah.
Not because I wouldn't have included one, because I like the Wild Hunt and all that sort of stuff, but it just never looked right. But that would be cool. I think that people would get a bit annoyed if they gave elves monstrous cavalry, though.
Well, maybe, yeah. But sometimes you just got to make something that looks good.
Yeah, and it would be really cool. It got me, as a Wood Elf player, it got me excited to think that they might do that.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's one Wood Elf player brought back to the fold.
And next we have the other elves. We've got the high elves, the snooty elves.
So for the snooty elves, I want to see Illyrian Reavers redone. Just because, they're a bit static. They're from Island of Blood, if I recall correctly. And I think now they could do something. If you think about the ones from the Realm Lords, I can't think about what they're called.
The Lumineth Realm Lords cavalry.
Yeah, the Lumineths. And they've got their cavalry, and they look fantastic. They're some of the best elf models I think I've ever seen. So if they could capture that.
Yeah, you're right there for sure. Because the Illyrian Reavers are fast cavalry, that motion would really lend itself to them. Whereas I think if they weren't fast cavalry, it doesn't matter so much.
No.
I think that's a good choice. What I've gone for redone is a unit that I think they might well be forced to redo in a way, is the Sword Masters. Because talking about Island of Blood, the Sword Masters, the place to get them was Island of Blood, really. But they were a shared sprue. There was like one sword master next to something else. There wasn't just a sprue of the way that kit worked. There wasn't just a sprue of sword masters, which is very unusual if you wanted them in plastic. So I don't think they're going to bring back Island of Blood just for people to get sword masters, but people will want them. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with that, because they were such an iconic unit. So I think that's one that they would probably have to redo.
Yeah, I agree with that. What would you like to see new done?
Well, I was thinking about this. I mean, you and I were talking about high elves a bit before, and we were talking about how there's going to be a strong naval presence, because that's how they're going to arrive in the old world. And I would like to see them. I mean, there's stories in the lore about them having like tamed merworms and things that travel with the fleets. And I wondered if we might see something along those lines. Not perhaps not an Eidolon of Mathland like we've got for the Deepkin, but maybe a monster or a sea dragon or something like that. Some variant, but sort of like a sea variant.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. See, I struggled with mine for a long time because I was thinking, what forces are going to be in the old world? And it was when we were reading about the Stormweavers who accompany them when they go off. They sail off to the old world. And they're the ones who like tame the sea worms and all of that good stuff. So maybe a new mage unit who's
they specialize in storm magic, don't they?
Yeah.
Which is a cool lore that hasn't really been explored a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So I thought that would be really cool.
That would be really good to see. I guess it would be sort of like sort of between heavens and life, maybe something like that. Storm magic. I'm not sure exactly, but it would be very cool to see a storm mage and what they would do with that, for sure. And especially as magic seems to be opening up into every phase of the game, and we've got more nuanced magic now. We don't have established colleges everywhere, although they would do in Ulthuan.
Yeah, and you can do loads of buff and loads of debuff spells with that, couldn't you? It doesn't have to be direct damage. May throw a lightning bolt at someone, but I remember there was a spell, I think it was 5th or 6th, where you just made it rain and everyone suffered one for their shooting.
Yeah. I just had an image of like an elf caster just doing this. It's all like
making it rain.
When you said that, but okay. Moving on. Orcs and goblins, another one of the armies you collected, Tom.
Oh, so much stuff. The orcs and goblin range is huge, man. You have no idea. When you actually look at it, it's flipping huge. I settled with the goblin wolf riders because I was looking at the underworld wolf riders and they look fantastic. I just want more of that in old world as well.
Yeah, they were very cool. A bit like what you're saying previously with the Illyrian Reavers, just carried a bit more motion and were just really nice looking models. I went with the Wyvern because I just think it's quite an old, tired kit. It's sort of like what I said with the Hippogriff, a bit small. Could be an amazing centerpiece model, could be really imposing on the battlefield, but just doesn't quite live up to it in the flesh.
Yeah, I get that.
And for new units, I was thinking about the goblins because I don't feel like we've seen a lot of the goblins in the pictures. It all seems to be orc based, and we go back to this competition clause that I know kind of Age of Sigmar has got night goblins down, but I thought this could be a really good opportunity to explore the forest goblins and bring those back and to like tie in some more units with that, like the spider riders. You could have spider swarms. And you could, explore all kinds of things with the forest goblins. I mean, we were talking about skirmishers with blowpipes and things like this. All kinds of crazy stuff. They could just go off on a tangent and do a lot with them. So I picked those because I don't think it treads on anyone's toes, and I think it's really fun and cool because there are loads of forests to explore in the old world, and it's going to be full of goblins. So let's some forest goblins.
And they're really good at coming up with like creepy crawlies, little gribbly wibbly creatures now, aren't they? So that'd just be too easy, I think. Mine is definitely stepping on the toes of people, and I imagine a lot of people wouldn't like to see it, but after I saw the Gore Grunters in AOS, I just thought, why aren't these on square bases in an Orcs and Goblins army? So I'd like to see some. Maybe if they didn't redo the Boar Boys and just made them a bit bigger and a bit more gruntier, I think some really heavy shock cavalry like that would be amazing for the Orcs.
I think they'd be really good for the Orcs as well, because Orcs are massive. They're much bigger than men. But the Empire has got this kind of monstrous cavalry. So why shouldn't the Orcs have it? So I think that you're right. It would be completely in place and in keeping if they had some kind of bigger cavalry unit.
It's just how to do it that isn't a boar, right? Because you end up just with gore grunters then. So
yeah, which is difficult. But I think you're right. I think you're totally right. It's completely in keeping. If the men can have it, why can't the orcs have it? And
the orcs should have everything.
Yeah, and it's more in scale anyway that they should ride something bigger than than a normal horse or something. So yeah, completely agree. Next, we've got Warriors of Chaos. I've gone for Marauder kit because I think it's just a bit old and tired. I look to Age of Sigmar and I see a lot of the kits that they've got there. I'm thinking of like Blood Reavers for Khorne and things like that, and the Chaos Mortals look much better. And I think Marauders were a bit tired at the end of Warhammer Fantasy Battles anyway, but I would like to see them redone personally.
Absolutely, yeah. I've gone with the same ones. Chaos Marauders, maybe give them a few new weapon options. So Chaos lacked the ability to reach out and touch you with any ranged weapons, so maybe give them a few bows, let them skirmish around. Maybe a bit too much considering how powerful Chaos Warriors can be, but
I think a bow is a bit precise. I think like a javelin would be more.
A javelin, yeah.
Type. And it doesn't have the range of a bow. You
Throwing axes.
Javelins. Yeah, that would be cool. And then for new units, I've just written CAOS, so I'm thinking specifically of like Warcry and all the stuff they've added on in there. I would have said a monster, like Furies and things like that, and they've gone and made them for Warcry, and they look fantastic. I personally hope that it's a fully shared range, and I know that's not what they're big fans of doing, or so say they're not going to be big fans of doing, but they do it with demons across. They did it across Fantasy, Age of Sigmar, and 40k. That your demons, no matter where they are. So I would hope that you would be able to incorporate a lot of this cool new stuff that we've seen. I really hope that would be the case.
Yeah.
And I also think otherwise people won't buy it. People aren't going to buy the old Chaos Warriors, are they? When we've got the new Chaos Warriors.
It'd be difficult to, wouldn't it? It's difficult to walk into the Games Workshop store and go, I want the old ones. I don't want the new hotness. I want old busted.
So, yeah, so that's what I've said. Anything that I think it's just brilliant. That and this beyond the scope of this video, but the vampire counts that are redone for Age of Sigmar as well, I would have said the same.
Yeah, so the new stuff I've gone for is in line with the Chaos Monsters, but it's all from like the Chaos Wastes. So you've got more corrupted Arctic creatures, so like massive mammoths, corrupted Arctic bears, wolves, saber-toothed tigers, a lot of things like that, straight from the Total War games.
I didn't even think of that, probably because I don't play Total War, but that's such a good idea that there are all these Chaos Wastes that are unexplored, and if we're going to zoom in on the old world, that is quite an important part. Really, it's right sort of kind of up there next to Kislev, isn't it?
Yeah. I think as well, like getting a Chaos Mammoth on the table. I know Forge World did one, but imagine one in plastic. Ooh. You walk into Warhammer World one day, someone will be playing with it. You'd have to buy it straight up.
Yeah.
Sold, please.
All right. Next, we have got the Beastmen.
Oh God, I know nothing of the Beastmen.
All right. Well, let me tell you
a few times.
Let me tell you what I want redone then, and that is Morga. And Morga is a named character for the Beastmen who just corrupts everything around him, and there's sort of no getting near him without being corrupted or tainted. And there's sort of things like people fire bows and arrows at him, and the arrow comes by, and when it gets in range of his corruption, it just turns into like a fish skeleton or something, and it doesn't do it, just gets corrupted and doesn't do anything. And at the time where this is set, like almost to the year, he's been reborn and he is active and he's in Bretonia in the Forest of Arden, and then there's a big battle between him and the Wood Elves. And then after that, the Wood Elves the Beastmen get really active in Athel Loren and then nearly wipe out the Wood Elves as a race altogether. So I'd like to see him come back because he's an interesting named character who is active in this time, and it'd be great to see him.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you combine him with like a campaign book?
Of course I would if I could. Yeah, of course I would if I could. It'd be amazing. And a novel and everything else. But yeah, and for new, I've gone for something in place of the Razor Gore, because it just, in my personal opinion, I never liked the Razor Gore model, but I think that there is a space for that. Like a bit like what you said previously about unicorns. That kind of a bit larger than your normal monster. I mean, it was tough. I think they had like 3 or 4 wounds. They were strength 5. They were a good unit, and also there was the option to have chariots pulled by them, but I think you kind of had to do counts as they made the model for that. But I just didn't like the look of the Razor Gore. I don't like the idea of it very much, if I'm honest. And I was looking at the new like Bull Endless Spell in Age of Sigmar, and I was thinking a unit of something like that, these like crazy magical burning charging bulls, would be really cool, and it might be a bit too high fantasy for the old world, but I think that's what I would like. Is I've written in my notes just something better than a Razor Gore, and I think that kind of captures what I'm trying to say. Something that kind of size monster that does that same sort of job but reimagined.
Yeah, I get that. So
do you have anything?
I would like to see a Jabber Slife redone. Just because it's a massive centerpiece model. Get it redone. Build some hype for the Beastmen. Get me excited about them to start with.
I thought there was going to be one redone at one point, because Games Workshop did one of these silhouettes that they do, and it looked like this sticking out tongue, and I was like, oh, it looks like one. And then it didn't come to pass. So yeah, that would be cool, because I remember being excited for what that could be like. So and you're right, a big centerpiece model, a nice big rare unit.
Everyone loves a centerpiece model, right? The problem is, does each table start to look like centerpiece model versus centerpiece model with little blocks of infantry flanking it? Is that the worry? I don't know. Maybe that's a discussion for another video.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to see as well is, I know they've got like one kind of medium type infantry with the Beastmen, a lot of like light cavalry, light skirmishy type units, but like a Cyclopean infantry in the same vein as like the Cyclops, but a lot smaller, as a real like heavy infantry shock troop kind of rare choice that goes in, gets the business done, can stick around.
That would be interesting, because I think you're right there that there isn't a rare choice. The rare choices are all taken up by monsters, so I don't think there is a heavy infantry rare choice. An elite. There are elite units. The best of Gores are the best of the Gores.
Yeah,
and they kind of fill an elite infantry role, or a more elite infantry role, but there isn't like a one up from them.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting to see.
Kind of, yeah. When your base infantry is worse than a human, then one up from a worse than a human is just a human.
Yeah, I think maybe there's an opportunity to redo the Gore kit and have Gore's best of Gores and whatever else.
Yeah.
And make it a combined
I tried to
kit.
stick away from doing like infantry or your standard core selection, because I think they'll get redone anyway. You know, at least I hope so.
All right, and lastly, we've got the Tomb Kings. All right, Tom. What would you like to see redone, and what would you like to see new?
Skeleton horse riders. So that is both the skeleton horse, the horse archer, the horse spearman guy. Anything to do with skeleton horses, I think, should be done.
It's so funny you say that, because when I wrote down my notes, I wrote chariots, and then in brackets, I then wrote anything with a horse, because I think Games Workshop do such a good job at doing skeletons now. The new skeleton ranges that they've been bringing out have been spot on, and they can just do them so much better. But I think, I would ideally have them overhaul everything, and the skeletal infantry as well. I would like to see be a plastic kit, but if I had to choose, a new plastic kit, but if I had to choose just one, I think you're spot on, Tom. I think it has to be the horses, because they just, unfortunately, with the new technology and the new sculpts and how they make things now, they just don't stand up, in my opinion.
No.
If they were to bring them back, I would be tempted to buy a third-party variant.
They're one of them, aren't they? For sure. And you want a lot of chariots in your Kings list.
Historically, the Egyptian army or the Egyptian military kind of had three branches, and it was infantry, chariots, and navy. So you're talking sort of a third of what they kind of had to offer. So chariot warfare was absolutely huge in the Bronze Age. It was the go-to, really. So I think they just need to look spot on, don't they? So I think we're both in complete agreement. And then for new units, there was some chatter in our hobby chat group that we've got, that there was talk of a Tomb King dragon, and this I think originally came from the Honest Wargamer, because he was looking back into Warmaster, and in the Warmaster lore, there was talk that there were Tomb King undead dragons, and he was wondering if they would come back. And ever since he said that, I just really wanted to see what one would look like. If it would be half bandaged up or something, or how much gold they could cover it in. I don't what kind of armor to carry. Nice. I think it could be a very cool variant on the zombie dragon, to have this undead dragon. I think it would be cool to see.
Like an entire Tomb Sphinx style dragon, like a proper magical construct.
Not really like a construct, you actually want to do it
undead.
Yeah, this is what it was saying. That it would be an undead dragon.
That's interesting.
And how about you, Tom?
Mine is based on the constructs they do. So they have quite a lot of the bigger constructs. Something smaller. So what's the infantry base size now? 32 mil or is it? I don't know.
25.
25 mil.
20.
25 mil base sized infantry construct. So something a bit tougher. Maybe. Yeah, something like that. So if you imagine
something
the Mummy 2
along the lines. Sorry, Tom. Do you mean something along the lines of the Ushabti but smaller?
Yeah, the Ushabti but much smaller. So right at the end of the Mummy 2, they summon armies of the Anubis or the Anubites. I can't think about what they're called off the top of my head. Sorry. And so these kind of bigger than a man. Almost twice as big as a man constructs, and the only way to kill them is by chopping off their heads with very special swords. So I think an army of them would be very, very nice for the Tomb Kings.
Yeah, nice to have a variant of the skeletal infantry, and I think they look really cool. I really like that aesthetic, so that would be fun to see, and like I said, would tie in very well with the Ushabti as well. So good choice, Tom. Good idea.
A lot of my thinking around these new stuff is army silhouette. So when you look at an army on the tabletop, is it a bit more three-dimensional than just it being a solid line of infantry? So how to get a bit of height and variation in the silhouette of an army.
Yeah, and that I think that is important. I do feel for you as a dwarf player trying to get that.
We had gyrocopters. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. So I think that's everything. All of the factions done, and those were our ideas that we just threw together. But I hope that you've enjoyed watching it, and even more so, I hope that you comment and you let us know what cool things you would like to see for your faction of choice. Thank you very much for watching. This has been 9-inch Charge. Make sure you've liked and subscribed if you enjoyed, and we will see you next time.